And we're having our Sunday question and answer period for the next hour. So my name is Shrutakirti and I'm a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. I met the devotees actually 51 years ago, 1971, just around this time. I was raised a little Catholic boy in Philadelphia. And when I met the devotees, I moved into the temple just a few days later and shaved my head. 1 year later, I became Srila Prabhupada's personal servant. I traveled with him for about 2.5 years, and I went around the world with him 4 times. And some of my services was I cooked for him every day in his cooker. Some of you may have seen pictures or videos of Prabhupada's cooker. So I cooked for him every day. I gave him a massage, morning and evening. I go on a morning walk with him, and of course visit all the classes and all. So I'm saying this so as you decide what questions you want to ask, maybe we can go into that area since I was with Prabhupada personally for a long time. So now, Prabhu, we'll wait to get the questions. Also, you're also welcome to ask questions if you like, those of you that are here in Prabhupada's library, as it may take a few minutes before he says something. So, as I said, when Prabhupada came to New Vrindavan, it was Janmashtami of 1972. And at that time, without any prior notice, the day before he left, Kirtanananda Maharaj asked me if I wanted to be Prabhupada's servant. So of course I said yes, and the very next morning I left with Srila Prabhupada for Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then I was on an airplane for the first time as we very quickly traveled to right here to this place in Vrindavan. So that was literally 50 years ago.
One question is,
yes.
why Vedas demigods like Indra as supreme, whereas Purana glorious Vishnu or Krishna? Again I repeat, why Vedas glorify demigods like Indra as supreme, whereas Purana glorify Vishnu or Krishna?
Yes. Well, we of course use right here, as you see, our main scripture, Bhagavad Gita, as it is. In Bhagavad Gita, was in the 9th chapter, Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajanti ma bhura bhava samanvita. In the chapter, Sarvadharman pradyaja mamekam saranam vraja. Demigods are there. Again, call them demigods. So of course, we understand through Vedic scriptures, and especially through Bhagavad Gita and Krishna's words himself, he's the supreme, summum bonum, the supreme personality of Godhead. Prabhupada said we have respect for everyone. Of course, we have great respect for all of the demigods who do such wonderful service for the Supreme Lord. In the Vedas, much like we see later on, again, I was raised a Christian, so we got very small amount of philosophy. We didn't understand anything about God. We say, even Prabhupada said, Jesus Christ, he was preaching at a particular time and place and to a particular audience. So the Vedas are also like that. Not everyone is prepared to surrender to Krishna. They want to surrender to the demigods so they can get some material benefit. Here in India, you know very well, the goddess of learning, you pray to Kali, you can pray to Brahma, you can pray to Shiva, you can pray to Saraswati, but everyone is looking for some material gain. The difference with Vaishnavas is we simply want to serve Krishna. So this is the topmost level. Not that we're trying to gain something from the demigods. As I said, I first came to India in 1972 with Srila Prabhupada. And I remember sometimes Prabhupada would go to different houses outside of India, other than in England, where Prabhupada had one Indian disciple, and he would have programs at his place. But outside of India, Prabhupada didn't do home programs. That was something very special here in India, with with the Indian population. And I remember going to this one house, wealthy life member, and they took us into the house, Prabhupada, and of course I'm always right behind them, just next to him as a servant, and they showed us the temple room. And in the temple room, there was Krishna, Radha Krishna was there, Lord Brahma was there, Lord Shiva was there. They even had a picture of Jesus. Because see, this is the mentality. I have to check all my bases, just in case, because I want something. So even I'm worshiping Jesus, because maybe he'll give me some benedictions. I'm worshiping Saraswati to get wonderful, intelligent sons. All these things we want. So Prabhupada introduced very different dynamic. Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna says, surrender everything. Give up all varieties of religiousness. That's what it means. All your demigod worship, all worship different so-called gurus. Worship me. And that's what Prabhupada said. He never said, worship me. Some of these gurus, they say, I'm Lord Caitanya. We have down the street here, incarnation of Lord Caitanya. So we don't buy these imitation supremes. Yes, Prabhu.
Can anyone here Tulsi who doesn't follow four regulative principles? He eats meat, takes alcohol, gamble, and commits crime.
Say it. Worship.
Can anyone here Tulsi?
Worship. Where Tulsi?
Tulsi. Who doesn't follow four regulative principles? He eats meat, takes alcohol, and
actually is stated, one of the Puranas, I've seen various quotes where it said everyone should take shelter of Tulsi Maharani, Vrinda Devi, even in their house. One, of course, Tulsi Devi, she's pure devotee of Krishna. We know Vrindavan means forest. It's forest of Tulsi. It's all about Tulsi Maharani. So if one has that kind of intelligence to be wearing Tulsi on their body, then they should have the same desire to perform these activities, especially to be following regulative principles. Here in India, it's not a very difficult thing. Of course, it's becoming more difficult. Prabhupada says regulative principles is not a very special devotional thing. He said it's human life. Just following regulative principles mean you're not an animal. So we encourage to do that, of course. And I know even here at the temple sometimes people have come up to me. They say, you give me the Tulsi. You give me the Tulsi, my neck beads, or hand me my japa beads. So this is very nice to see authorities. We try to follow the authorities. So what I've observed in Shastra, and I can't quote it, but it said anyone should wear Tulsi beads. But at the same time, you should understand, pure devotee is around you. Just like there's no restriction, we don't take our beads off, we go into the bathroom, we go to shower. Beads are always there. Prabhupada told one of his disciples, it wasn't me, before me, his servant, his neck beads had broken. And he came into Prabhupada, rang his bell, and he went into the room, offered obeisances, and he sat up. And immediately Prabhupada looked at him, and he said, where are your neck beads? He said, oh Prabhupada, they broke, I have to. This was before you could just, have the little nice thing. Yeah, we had put them on. Once they were on, they never came off. There was no clip you could take them off. And Prabhupada said to him, if you knew what could happen with not wearing your neck beads, he said, you would never remove your neck beads. Yes, Prabhupada, he said. Immediately he went and put on his neck piece. So wearing Tulsi around the neck, we know, of course, Yamadutas, immediately they recognize this person is Vaishnava. Don't bother him. But we shouldn't take advantage as well. Just like we know in chanting the holy name, 10 offenses to the holy name. So everything, we're chanting, we have our beads, our japa beads, we have our neck beads. If we're ready to take that step, we should become serious. But I can't say there's a prohibition.
Okay, Krishna. My question is that there's a very fine line between humility and tolerance. I would like to know that.
She said there's a fine line between humility and tolerance? Yes, yes. What is that line? Well, just like in class the other day, where he mentioned how Prabhupada said we have to be independently thoughtful. That means Krishna consciousness. We don't follow blindly. One should understand the philosophy. One should read. One should understand. Then they know who's devotee, who's not devotee. Like that. As Prabhupada said, just because one's wearing tilak, kurta, dhoti, it can still be, in the West we say sheep, and wolf in sheep's clothing. So we know that's there. It's always been there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he had many demoniac personalities. So as far as humility, with ourselves in particular, no one should ever, of course, the devotee would never abuse anyone. Again, human being means they have respect for every other living entity. Not to speak of the devotee has respect. For ourselves, of course, we don't look for respect. Even one is offended, he doesn't take it seriously, because true devotee considers he's the lowest of all. Everyone is better devotee than him. But others, they will come to a devotee's defense as well. So sometimes we need to depend on Krishna. But at the same time, just like yesterday, we had a program, 200 college students, Ayurvedic, and doctors, so many things. And my topic was about be in touch and stay in touch. So the devotee looks for good association. If we find someone who's offensive, just avoid. You just have to avoid. You have to know, you have to understand what's good for my advancement in Krishna consciousness. So that was my thing. We had the topics, of course, prasadam is so important. But besides chanting, taking prasadam, association is the most important activity. So we find someone who's always talking nonsense, always critical, always offensive, then you avoid that. So Prabhupada did that himself. I told many times the story, his godbrother would come to see him. Sannyasi godbrother in Mayapur. And he lived just 10 minutes away. In 1973, even traveled in Mayapur. It wasn't much there. But he would come visit Prabhupada every day. Prabhupada's sannyasi godbrother. And he left one day and Prabhupada said to me, I don't want to see him. He said, all he does is criticize. He said, he tells me in this temple his disciples are doing this, these people are doing this, and this one dear, this is going on. He said, I'm not interested in hearing all of this. He said, if he came here, talked philosophy, talked about Lord Caitanya, Sankirtan movement, like that, he said, I'd be very happy for him to come. He said, but simply talks nonsense, gossip. Prabhupada used the word gossip. Didn't say prajalpa. He said gossip. Gossip is very specific. Gossip means talking about putting anyone down so I could be above him. Prabhupada never wanted to hear that. So that's devotee. find yourself in that situation. The very next day, he came back to see Srila Prabhupada. Imagine, Prabhupada told his servant, I don't want to see him. It's his godbrother. It's not my godbrother. It's Prabhupada's godbrother. The next day, he came up the stairs at Mayapur. I'm here to see Maharaj. So, Prabhupada was resting. So it was easy. It was after lunch. I said, Prabhupada's taking rest. He rested 15, 20 minutes. He got very indignant. I'm here to see Prabhupada. He said, whenever I come, he said, you can see me. He said, so, I said, yes, but he's resting. I said, I can't disturb him while he's resting. As we're talking, just outside Prabhupada's doors, Prabhupada opened the bedroom door. So it was summertime. He just had his dhoti on. Just got out of bed. He was fixing his dhoti. He looked at his godbrother. He looked at me. He said, welcome. Maharaj, welcome. He said, come sit down. He said, I'll be right there. Prabhupada went the other direction to use the bathroom. So me and his godbrother, we sat down in Prabhupada's sitting room. And I'm feeling very anxious, nervous. Because now Prabhupada's inviting him into the room. So we sat down and I could feel Maharaj next to me. He just wanted to punish me. I offended him. So then Prabhupada came back down the hallway, opened the door. Oh, Maharaj, so nice to see you. He went and sat down, didn't hug him. Prabhupada would hug godbrother, some of them, very close they were. But him, he just went and sat down. And immediately, his godbrother said, Maharaj, he said, I came to see you and your disciple. He said, I couldn't go in. Prabhupada looked at me. He said, I told you, whenever he comes, immediately you let him in. Yes, Prabhupada. And then I offered obeisances and left the room. So this is a devotee. Prabhupada, if he came, Prabhupada would give him his association, not the other way around. So we have two choices. You either change the person's consciousness or you leave the place. Just say, I have to check my rounds. I'm sorry, I'll talk to you later. Jamuna, when people would come to Jamuna, sometimes and start talking about one person or another, this person's doing this. She'd say, oh, that's very interesting, and then she'd leave. So we have to use, that's what it means to be independently thoughtful. Don't let someone else take over your brain matter, your mind, decide what you should be thinking, how you should be feeling. Because that's what they're doing. They're trying to change how you feel about a situation. So unless someone's giving you Krishna, what's our business? We know as devotees. We don't take association, we give association. So that's how you deal. You have to be better than them. As Prabhupada said in his books, you'll see many references. He said, devotees, everyone is serving Krishna according to their capacity. So you feel compassion upon someone who's struggling, but it doesn't mean you take all their nonsense. Prabhupada had such a way of dealing with everything. Someone would come into his room and they would start complaining. This person, temple president's not chanting his round, and this is doing this and doing that. Prabhupada would never pass judgment until he talked with the other person. You don't take one side. Prabhupada would find out both sides. Also, somebody said the temple president, he's not chanting, he's not doing. Prabhupada said, do you want to be temple president? No, Prabhupada. Then be quiet. Prabhupada had ways of dealing in different situations. And he made his comment. He said very much it should be run like military organization. He said the ladies he said like in a convent. My sister was in a convent for 25 years. Super organized, just like we try to be. The morning program. She also, 5 o'clock in the morning, she would have to go to early mass. They would chant on their rosaries. They didn't drink. They didn't smoke. All these things were there. So this is human life. One understands this. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Yeah. You have an online question? Okay, take one online first.
Did Srila Prabhupada ever talk about Manjari Bhav, Ashtakaliya Leela, Sarup, Siddhi, and all such things?
Well, you can read Srila Prabhupada's books. If you read Caitanya Charitamrita, even Prabhupada translated 1970, around then, teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Very, very deep. So these things are discussed in Prabhupada's books. Of course, Nectar of Devotion again, which was when I joined in 1971. Nectar of Devotion was there. Teachings of Lord Chaitanya was there. So it wasn't just that we had Bhagavad Gita. The Krishna book was there, 10th canto was there. So discussions were there, but in his lectures, in his conversations, in his morning walks, Prabhupada didn't discuss these topics. Actually, he would say, I was with Prabhupada in 1973. I was with Prabhupada 2 periods. First time was from Janmashtami, 1972, which meant August of 1972, until the end of 1973. So that was 16 months. And then after that, I was away for 8 months, and then I was with him for another almost 16 months. During that time, 1973, Prabhupada was in Mayapur, and one of his disciples, Rishikeshananda Swami was his name. He had come over to India early, like 1969 or so, 1970. So he stayed in one of Prabhupada's godbrothers' mandirs in the temple. So he was taking guidance from Prabhupada's godbrother. And of course, in the temple, the brahmacharis in the temple, they, as he told Prabhupada, they were always discussing, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is this, the spiritual world, your spiritual master is like this. And Prabhupada looked, he laughed, he said, oh, you know too much. And then he said, well, Prabhupada, what is your role in the spiritual? Prabhupada said, we don't discuss these things. So that was Prabhupada's mood, huh? Because in our society, we're always dealing with newer people coming. Huh? Just like me, I'm here in Vrindavan now. I've been around here and there for 50 years. But there's people, majority of people in the temple, a couple of years, 5 years, 10 years. So Prabhupada's program has become very fixed up in your sadhana bhakti. And as he said, everything will come. All these realizations will come by the grace of the spiritual master. And then when one becomes that realized person, he also realizes you don't share with people that can't understand. Because it'll just confuse them, and then they'll also get off the track. We had a few times Prabhupada stopped what we had in America. It was called the Gopi Bhava Club. There were 50 of them in Los Angeles, where the BBT was. Many of them worked with the BBT, the books, typesetting, printing, painting. So they had a special group, and they would just read from Caitanya Charitamrita, from different, only about the gopis. So when Prabhupada found out, he was furious. One of the first things Prabhupada told me, before I was his servant, I was in his garden in Los Angeles. It's when he gave me second initiation, May of 72. So it was 1 year after I had moved into a temple. And I would read Krishna book to him in the afternoon in the garden for a half hour. Just like we sit here, Prabhupada would sit. We all sat in front of him, just 5 or 6 young brahmachari disciples. He would chant. Sometimes he would say something, and then he would look at me and go, meant read. So the first day I read Krishna book story, and it was about just like this Pralamba we're reading. It was about Balaram killing a demon. And when I came to the spot where he killed this demon and blood's flying, Prabhupada started laughing and laughing and laughing, and his body, when Prabhupada laughed, he laughed at a whole different level. His whole body was shaking and tears would roll down his eyes, his stomach would shake, everything, and he started slapping his knee. There's a term for that in English. We say knee slapper. That's the highest level of laughing. And Prabhupada was doing that when he heard Balaram killing this demon. He was in ecstasy. So the next day, I had a plan. I was going to read a story about Krishna killing a demon because I saw how Prabhupada reacted. So I thought I'll read this story, and when I say this one line, Prabhupada's going to do just what he did yesterday. Imagine, I was so... I had so much imagination. I thought I'm going to read this one line. Not even anywhere in the story. I thought when I read this line, he's going to laugh, just like he did yesterday. So we're in the garden, and I'm holding the book, waiting for the nod, because he would talk to us. And I'm sitting, I'm very nervous. And then finally looked, read. And I started reading. It was a story of David Gorilla. That was one of my favorite stories as a young devotee boy. Krishna killing the demons. I could read about it all day. So I'm reading, and I'm coming up to the line, and my heart's beating, beating, beating. And I described how David Gorilla came out from behind the bushes, you know, and he would make fun of the girls, expose himself, and make bizarre faces. And then he went up to where all the Brahmins were, and he passed urine on the fire. So I thought that was hysterical. So I got to the line, and I read it. And as soon as I read it, Prabhupada started laughing. And laughing and laughing, and his body was shaking, and he's slapping his knee, and tears are coming down. And everybody, we're all laughing because he was laughing. It wasn't that we felt the same about Krishna doing this. It was a story. But for Prabhupada, it was happening. And Prabhupada was in ecstasy. So everything I thought he did, which was amazing, and which was Prabhupada's mercy. And Prabhupada, he was mind reader. He knew what you were thinking. If he wanted to, he knew everything was going on. Not in a bad way, not thinking you're a terrible person. No, the very opposite. Look at this nice young boys and girls. They're so eager to serve Krishna. And he engaged us in that way. So he laughed and laughed, and we all laughed with Prabhupada, seeing his appreciation for Krishna. And Krishna book, his Krishna book. But it wasn't his Krishna book, it was Krishna's Krishna book. It was Krishna's book. Prabhupada once in Mayapur, he did it a few times. I came in after breakfast. He said, "Did you record class this morning?" I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." He said, "Play it." He said, "I really liked that class." As if he was listening to it. Because he said, it's all Krishna. He said, "I get amazed." He said, "When I see what I've written," he said, "I'm amazed." So the next day I go into the garden, but Krishna, the source of memory and intelligence, he took my intelligence away, so I forgot to look for another story about a demon. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to see Prabhupada laugh hysterically, laugh and laugh and laugh in ecstasy. But he took away my intelligence that day. I'm just sitting there. Everyone were sitting there. And as soon as I offered obeisances and sat up, he looked at me, he said, "Read," because he knew I hadn't picked the story. So then I'm like this, I have the Krishna book, and I'm looking for a story about a demon. And Prabhupada said, "Anywhere." He said, "Krishna's like a sweet ball." He said, "Wherever you bite, it's sweet." So this Gopi Bhava, this and that, everywhere. If you just have some attachment to Krishna and the gopis, then you should see why it's like that. Prabhupada was everywhere. You should be attached to everything, not pigeonhole, pick this, that. And again I saw that. He would call us in his room in the afternoon sometimes if he knew we were sleeping. Because I'd get everyone. He'd come and sit in front of Prabhupada in his room. And then he'd look at one of the young. We were all young. Everybody was 19, 20, 21, 22. And he'd look at one of the boys and say, get a book. The only books in Prabhupada's room were Prabhupada's books. We had a bookshelf, 2 or 3 levels. As I was with him, the books grew from 5 to 40 in the course of 3 years. So he'd say, get a book. And every time, the devotee would say, which book? And I'd just sit there and think, And Prabhupada would go, any book. And then they'd get the book. And they'd have the book. And they'd say, where? Anywhere. Anywhere, Prabhupada would say. So the first thing we have to understand, everywhere, Krishna's in every word. And if you think he's only in this spot, not in this spot, then you have much to learn. So better you follow the instructions of the spiritual master until you can understand properly. Okay, who is? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So my question is, while serving, be a spiritual master or some senior Vaishnava, sometimes that false pride comes into the mind that, okay, I got this opportunity, I'm serving. So you don't want, but this thing just comes in.
Pride.
So how to handle that? Because we know it is bad, but it is I can't control.
So think, I was Prabhupada's servant.
Yeah, that is
How much false pride is there?
So definitely you would not be having that, but that's why I asked that how to tackle it, because you had that level.
Prabhupada, he would smash your false pride. If you actually, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says, what, your friends are your enemies, and your enemies are your friends. Someone's flattering you, he's your enemy. He just makes false ego grow bigger, bigger. One of the things I always found so wonderful with Prabhupada is how he was so, not indifferent, just so transcendental, is everyone bowing down, all around, all the time. Like I said, as his servant, just at lunchtime, I would go in and out of his room 12 times with a chapati. Every time, 1 chapati, not 3, 4 chapati, 1 at a time. So if he ate 6 chapatis, that's 6 times in and out of his room. If he asked for more dal, little more rice, this sabji, that sabji. So 12 times. Each time I offered obeisances, I went in his room. Even if I was in there 2 minutes before, next time I would come in, no one ever told me, this is what you do as Prabhupada's servant. There was no manuals. Now we have manuals. This whole wall filled with manuals, how to chant, how to control the mind, Bhakti Shastri courses, japa retreats. None of this existed in those days. We had hardcore, we learned everything from God brothers and God sisters. No, don't do that, do this, do that. And we accepted it as they were like authority. But myself, and I didn't, we all have some pride. Prabhupada says we're proud to be servants of Krishna. And that was also in the garden in New Dwarka. Before I was his servant, I said sometimes he would talk. So the one time, we're all sitting there, we were brand new, 1 year, 6 months, 3 years, 4 years. 4 years meant you were a senior devotee. If you were around 4 years, you were a big, big senior. And Prabhupada's sitting, and then he looked at us. He said, what color is Krishna? That was the first time I understood. Prabhupada asks a question. Be very careful what you say. because he's always going to trick you. Most of the time, if you asked a question, you were wrong when you answered his question. So as soon as he did that, I thought, he's asking what color is Krishna? That's a funny question. And so one devotee raised, said, Prabhupada, it's described in Krishna book. And he's a smart devotee. Because he's going to quote Shastra. He said he's blackish, like the monsoon, like monsoon rain cloud. We know them here. In India, you know what a monsoon night, blackish, dark, they're incredible. Prabhupada shook his head. He said he's blue like the sky. He said that's why the sky is blue, because it's reflecting Krishna's bodily effulgence. Imagine, sometimes we have blue skies here. In the US, you see a lot of blue skies. In South India, here in something we see grayish skies, but sometimes it's very blue. It's Krishna's effulgence. So this is how Prabhupada showed us. You see Krishna everywhere. You look at the cloud, you see Krishna. Look at the sky, you look at the sun, look at the moon. He smelt, this is Krishna. I gave him jasmine flowers. We pick them every morning for our Giriraj, right outside our room, jasmine. It's the most fragrant flower. And now it's jasmine flower season here in Vrindavan. Prabhupada had 20 jasmine garlands on him this morning. So he smelt the flower. This is Krishna. And then he went, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. He said, we're proud to be Krishna's servants. He said, that's our pride. He said, everyone is serving the family, serving wife, husband, children, serving dogs, serving the employer. He said, but we're servants of Krishna. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. And then he looked at me, this new 1 year. He said, Krishna may be God or maybe he's not God. We don't care. He said, we just love Krishna. So he went right to the very highest level. We hear these stories every day. None of these cowherd boys knew Krishna was God. They wouldn't be jumping up on his shoulders if they understood it. No, that's their yoga maya. So we can have some level of pride in our appreciation of others. Just like I'm proud. I even put a little thing on. There was a little comic about dogs. Anyway, I put it on. I said, I'm a dog, but I'm Prabhupada's dog. So that's our pride. But that's all mercy. Not that we've achieved it by our good works. All mercy of the pure devotee. So the only way to deal with pride is to understand your real position. And if we have false pride, it's because we don't understand. We're just insignificant little servants of Krishna. So that comes. And that's what I was saying. Everyone offering their obeisance to Prabhupada, not affected, just passes it right to his spiritual master. This is genuine feelings. I don't deserve any of this. I'm just servant of my guru. That was Prabhupada's mood all the time. So we have to achieve that. In the meantime, if pride is there, you pray. Krishna can also smash you very nicely and deal with your pride. I also see that. Here in Vrindavan, I especially see that. If you want your pride dealt with, just come live in a temple, anywhere. Everybody will not give you any respect, But we give it to others. We're not looking. That will help defeat the pride by offering our obeisances. We know that one Gargamuni said, right? He was 17. His big brother joined Brahmananda and he joined. And he told Prabhupada, everyone's bowing down. He said, I don't feel that. Prabhupada said, well, do it and then you'll feel it gradually. So we practice humility until we can actually become humble. Again, they say, you fake it till you make it. No, it's a practice. We practice and we'll achieve it. But it's by understanding the philosophy. Who are we? And understanding anything I do is only by the mercy of my spiritual master. Me, I can't do anything. And I can honestly say that. Every time I have to give a class, I'm in anxiety until the class is over. Because I think, what am I going to say? And I pray. Pray to Krishna, to Prabhupada, give me something to say, somehow or other. Okay, Prabhu, question.
Next question. As per Shastra, one should associate with his guru before taking initiation from him and check whether he is following rules or not and is well versed in Shastra. But nowadays gurus have so many disciples that we are just able to hear Katha from them but can't associate with him.
Yes. People were saying that in 1975 with Srila Prabhupada. Most of his disciples never saw him personally. And Prabhupada depended on his disciples, his senior disciples, to transmit what he was giving, the instructions he was giving, the instructions to follow. Also, it isn't true that all of my godbrothers have thousands of disciples. I have some godbrothers have 5 disciples, 20 disciples, 50 disciples. If you're looking for a very personal relationship, the relationship between guru and disciple is personal. He should know who you are, and you should understand who he is and how he's representing Srila Prabhupada in our ISKCON society. So you look for that person who is transparent. We always say transparent via media. The disciplic succession. Transparent via media. Just as I described, Prabhupada received obeisances. He didn't keep it, oh, they're all worshiping me, this is wonderful, giving me their money. Prabhupada didn't use anything for himself. Nothing. So transparent means whatever I receive from my disciple, I pass it to my spiritual master. It's not mine. Nothing is mine. But it also goes the other way. Whatever I learn from my spiritual master, I give to my disciples without watering it down, without eliminating something, without adding and subtracting. This is a qualified guru. Prabhupada said, first follow, then you can lead. Someone was playing cartels next to him, his kirtan, but he wasn't paying attention to what Prabhupada was doing, and Prabhupada stopped him. He said, first learn to follow, then you can lead. Not just with cartels, with everything in spiritual life. First become proper follower, not bogus follower. I'll do this part, but I'm not going to do this part. And now I'm going to take on a lot of disciples who will do things the way I want. No, this is bogus. So in looking for a spiritual master, you have to understand also what you require. As I said, I have more than a few godbrothers. They just have a few disciples. And they say, I can bring you to Srila Prabhupada. So depending on what you want, you have to investigate. And of course, we know in ISKCON there's something like over 100 initiating gurus. But very much I see that it's important to be able to have personal relationship with your spiritual master as well, if it's possible. I can honestly say I'm only here today because of my personal association with Srila Prabhupada. What I needed, he gave me. That's what the spiritual master does. He gives you what you need. But then you have to do it. You have to follow. So the opportunity is there. And I've also, practically speaking, I've had people tell me, I can't even write my spiritual master, don't answer letters. Prabhupada answered all his letters in those days. He had a secretary, and they were all typed out, very personal. Not this impersonal connections we have now, huh? You have people telling you what to do on Facebook and Instagram. You don't even know who they are. And they're going to tell you, you're this, you're that, you're nonsense. No, we want to have personal. When I was with Prabhupada again in Los Angeles, one day, walking down the stairs, I'm always right behind him. I'm like a shadow. And he saw a bead bag hanging like this, just hanging on a doorknob. He said, whose bead bag is crying on the doorknob? So see, our philosophy, we understand everything is personal. And Krishna is everywhere. Another day he saw a plate of prasadam on a table. No one there, maybe half eaten. He said, who's left their prasadam crying on the table? See? This is spiritual vision. This is the vision we want to develop. So we have to take that association and understand how the devotee sees. Not how I see things. How does he see things? Once I was on the morning walk. I had been with him 2 years already. It was 1975 and we're in Mexico City in a botanical garden. And Prabhupada's walking with like 20 of his disciples. Vidayananda Maharaj is there, this Maharaj. And Prabhupada's walking with his cane. And he stopped and he pointed to a tree. It was dead. And Prabhupada said, how did the tree die? So again, I don't say anything because it's always a trick question. So one boy, everyone wants to answer Prabhupada, right? To have an exchange with him, to be seen by Prabhupada, to talk with him. That was the highest, the greatest desire we could have, was just to have Prabhupada look at me. And then if he spoke to you, your whole life was complete. Just one little look, one little conversation, one word. So finally one devotee said, the GBC, he said, well, Prabhupada became diseased. Prabhupada would shake his head. He shook his head so joyfully. So another devotee, Prabhupada became old and died. Prabhupada shook his head no. So now we're going, old age, disease, death, So I'm standing next to Prabhupada and I've got the microphone and I'm thinking, what is he looking for? They were good. What else could happen? A car hit it? So I'm thinking, how does Prabhupada see things? And then I looked at Prabhupada, I said, Prabhupada, the spirit soul's left. So see, you have to develop proper vision, proper understanding, and that comes through the spiritual master, by his mercy, by his books, by his service, by his compassion. Then you'll understand how to see things. So we want a spiritual master who can give us all that. And we have him. Everywhere here, this room is filled with Srila Prabhupada's books. He's our preeminent Shiksha Guru. Well, you may have this guru, that guru. Prabhupada is your preeminent Shiksha Guru. So read his books, understand. He's here, he's alive. We chant it all the time, right? Pure devotee, he doesn't die, he lives forever in his words. That's not just words, it's a fact. So Prabhupada's here for everyone who take advantage. He's also your spiritual master. Huh? He's your guru. Don't just be concerned who is the personality that I'm going to get along with. So many reasons people will pick. Prabhupada said it's not a fashion. Not that you're looking for the most handsome one out of all of them. No, that's not our business. Who can deliver you from birth and death? That person I want to take as my guru. We just have a few minutes left.
what are your views on the Sikh Sampradaya of Bhakti Bihari and Radha Vallabh? Are they authentic? Some say they are. Did Srila Prabhupada ever visited or encouraged anyone to visit these temples?
I didn't get that. What was that?
Again I repeat. What are your views on the Sikh Sampradaya?
On the what?
Rasik Sampradaya.
Rasik Sampradaya
The Bhakti Bihari temple.
of Bhakti Bihari.
I don't know. I was very fortunate back in 1971 to meet my spiritual master. I don't know anything about anyone else. Sometimes they would ask Prabhupada about this so-called guru and that, and Prabhupada would say, I don't know him. I don't know any. I have been living here for 3 years. I have not been to any other temple in Vrindavan except Krishna Balaram Mandir. I really can't give any information on what's going on in other places. Prabhupada told us that all of the holy places were inside the courtyard of Krishna Balaram Mandir. Every now and then I go to Govardhan. I go around Govardhan, take bath in Govinda Kund, Sarabi Kund, like that. But otherwise, just like Prabhupada wanted to go to Govardhan before he left. That was the one desire. And I did go to Govardhan with Srila Prabhupada back in 1972. The one place he went to when I was with him here in Vrindavan. So, yes, everyone in Vrindavan is devotee, Prabhupada would say, everyone. And they may be nonsense, but then they can come back as, Prabhupada said, a monkey, a hog, like that, and then finished. Vrindavan is so powerful. Prabhupada said that to a disciple Prabhupada, in 1970. Imagine now, 2022, what it's like everywhere, concrete buildings, concrete roads. 1972 was all Braj Raj. You walk around Vrindavan, all dust, the saffron dust of Vrindavan. But it's not like that. And the devotee said, Prabhupada, it smells and it's dirty and it's like this and like that. Said everyone takes birth in Vrindavan is liberated. He said, so what is different? Potency is still there. But if you're looking with material vision, you'll think, oh, Vrindavan, I hear. God brothers, God sisters, oh, I'll never go back to Vrindavan. Makes me want to cry. There's no better place than this place. If you can be here, be here. This is best place in all the 3 worlds, to be here in Vrindavan and to be in the shelter of Srila Prabhupada, who has given the whole world Krishna consciousness. So we all here, we feel very, very happy to be in Vrindavan. No, we just visited in the car. I'm not even sure. I was new. When I was with Prabhupada, we stayed at Radha Damodar Temple for 1 month of Kartik. I used to go to the front doors of the temple and look down the street and go back inside because I was afraid. I didn't know where the Jamuna was. I didn't know anything. All I knew was where Prabhupada took me on a morning walk. Then I knew where I was. Otherwise, I didn't know anything. And it hasn't changed. I don't know anything. People say, you go here? I don't know. I don't know these places. I know very little. But I know one thing. Just remain loyal to Srila Prabhupada and your life will be successful. Everything you want, you will get. That much I know by associating with him. Yeah. We have time for one more, Prabhu?
What is the difference? What is the difference before and after initiation?
Prabhupada says many different things, but one thing he says is initiation is a formality. The real initiation is when you follow. So initiation, the formality is you're sitting before your spiritual master, before the fire, and you're taking vows. That's initiation. You're taking the vow. I'm going to follow these regulative principles the rest of my life. I'm going to chant my 16 rounds every day the rest of my life. That's what Prabhupada had to say during that point of initiation. So that's what initiation about. But he said the real business is following. He said in disciple, we know disciple means discipline. Disciple, discipline. So he said if you're not following, then you're not even disciple. Initiation or no initiation. The business is to follow. So not be cheater. That's what I said in the beginning. Just because I have tilak, nice neck beads, all the, doesn't make you a devotee. Devotee is one who's devoted to Krishna. He's serving Krishna. So that's our business.
And even you, like 4 months or 5 months devotee, how exactly consistently we have to, how did you manage to chant so many years?
I try to explain sometimes. All of you here in India, you have no idea what it was for us in the West in 1970. Have no understanding at all of Vedic culture. No idea of Krishna, all these demigods. We didn't know anything. And we came, like I came. Every question I asked this person, he gave me an answer. Is there? Yes, God. His name is Krishna. He has a brother, he has a sister, he has mothers, fathers, friends, everything. And I was fortunate. I accepted everything immediately and joined because questions I had had for years were answered just like that. So that feeling we had inside, that enthusiasm, that to just serve, overwhelmed all of us. And we could go out on Hari Nam and someone could come up to you and ask questions and go home with you that day. Because we were so inspired and carried Prabhupada's enthusiasm and determination to give Krishna to others. So we didn't know much about Krishna, but we didn't have to. Just saying Krishna is God, that was amazing. I used to sit in the temple, I would chant, and I'd look at the form, the universal form. There was that photograph with Vishnu and then all the, and I would chant and look, because I wanted to see him move. I wanted to see him speak. This is what we were like. We were just excited at every moment. We were thrilled. We were raised to do something completely different, just like all of you are doing now. Yesterday, 200. Talked to 200 people in their 20s, all in college for Ayurveda, dentistry, that business. And they all came here to hear about Krishna in Vrindavan. We didn't know anything. You people, that's why when Prabhupada came to India, he would really tell them, it's your business. Krishna appeared here. Your business to go all over the world and educate people about Krishna, because you've been given that facility. In the West, no one had that facility. He had to turn Malechas into Vaishnavas to preach, because no one would even leave India with him. He said, I would go to families, they had 5 sons. Say, give me 1 son, I'll make him a brahmachari, I'll bring him to America. No. Oh, they're in college, have to become this, have to become that. But now even here, all these youngsters are seeing, why? Working so hard and I'm going to wind up like my parents, always in anxiety, just to have a nice, pretty place to live in the latest car. India, you're 50 years behind. Literally 50 years behind. They're struggling to do all the things we did 50 years ago. And just as I became frustrated in 1972 while I was in the university, they're also becoming frustrated now. And India is going to be overrun with Hare Krishnas. It already is, but it's just going to be more and more and more and more. So it's after 12 o'clock. That was a very quick hour. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope I answered the questions nicely. Thank you all that came here to attend, take part as well. Now in the evening, all of you online as well, starting I think in a few days, we're going to start having Bhagavad Gita class every evening in Balaram Hall. So give more facility for people to attend. Also online attend. And every Sunday, it will be Prabhupada Katha in Balaram Hall at 5 p.m. And then 6 p.m. is Hindi class as well. So all that is a change that's going on. And this room, which we've been calling Prabhupada's Library, is going to become a proper library of Vaishnava literature. Of course, all of Srila Prabhupada's books, and he wants books from the Vaishnava Acharyas in here as well. And people are going to be able to come here, sit down at a nice wood table and chair and read. So it'll become an actual library. So we're very excited about all of that. Oh, thank you very much, everyone. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.